Eugene Murphy, who has 7 minutes.
I suppose, first of all, I want to acknowledge the motion brought forward here, and indeed the work from Deputy Connolly, and prior to that Deputy Daly, and indeed Deputy O'Loughlin here from our own party. And I'm not going to go bashing anybody, but I would say that this issue is discussed quite a lot by our party, and I know from my own perspective and many of my Fianna Fáil colleagues, we have dealt with people who have been victims of such abuse. And again, nobody has a monopoly on those things in this House. And to portray us as a party who maybe doesn't care or work on this compared to others isn't just fair. Now, I just want to say from the outset, Last Cancora, that while Fianna Fáil has submitted an amendment on this motion, we also have our own counter-motion, as Deputy O'Loughlin and Deputy Byrne said. But I do believe that there are elements of this motion which have real merit, and there are many positives to it, in particular to consider streamlining the application process, providing face-to-face appointments with applicants, drawing up a new survivor-led customer charter, and to establish and clarify a system of appropriate oversight of the operations of Caranua. All of these recommendations, in my opinion, are welcome. But having said that, I think it's important that we await the review of Caranua eligibility that is already ongoing and is due in a very short time, hopefully in July. Yes, there may be a need to expand the eligibility criteria for Caranua and for the services that they supply. But I think we should wait to hear the recommendations of the statutory review in conjunction with the stakeholders' view before supporting specific proposals to expand eligibility. We all know that reviews cost money, and we should at least wait to see the outcome of the current review process before establishing another overlapping duplicative review. And it is very important in the process that we are engaged in now that we get this right. Because there are situations, there are difficulties. And I recall reading an Irish Times article recently in relation to Caranua, and it specifically referred to the guidelines. And what the guidelines said: we will listen to you, we will treat you with courtesy, we will treat you fairly, and if we get something wrong, we will apologise and put it right. They are the guidelines that are set out in what Caranua says. Our counter-motion makes an explicit commitment to facilitating the passage of any legislative changes that will be required to implement any reforms to eligibility of Caranua functions that may be recommended by the review or as part of the stakeholder engagement. We must remember that the function of Caranua is to provide support to people who, as children, experienced abuse in institutions in Ireland. Those institutions, many run by religious congregations and funded and regulated by the state, by the way. Of the 110 million pledged to the scheme, 56 million has been expended in support of over 4,000 eligible former residents. It is imperative that we do nothing which could jeopardise or impact on the 4,000 former residents in receipt of funding or services, or indeed deplete the funding pool for the 15,000 people who are eligible. Let's not forget that it's not just figures and numbers we are talking about. These are real people who've been left with a huge, heartbroken void in their lives. People who suffered horrific abuse by the very institutions who were meant to protect them, who were meant to nurture them, who were meant to take care of them. And I would be fearful that some of the proposals in this motion could have unintended consequences. And I say unintended consequences, and therefore need to be scrutinised very, very carefully. For example, one of the proposals is to expand eligibility for the fund to include former residents who have not previously sought a settlement. Now, the Department states this amendment would mean that anyone who attended a residential institution would technically be able to apply to the fund. There is no way of knowing how many potential new recipients this could include, which could overload the scheme. It could also deplete resources that are earmarked for existing survivors and services provided by Caranua. So I think everybody agrees and accepts that something needs to be done, but in what we do, we need to get it right. Go on, Margaret.